Have you ever found yourself locked into a conversation and noticed hours have passed by? Well, today I'm guilty of that with my guest. Hey, everybody, I'm Orlando Fox, and welcome to Perspective. Three of my real friends are joining me today to talk about topics we have discussed in real life. I've kept these guys on the phone, not all at once, but at separate times, having different conversations with them. Please welcome my first guest, Street Love Incorporation Director, Cameron Henderson. Ready to Love reality star Donovan Gasper, and Commissioner for the Office of Disability Rights, Terrence Hunter. Gentlemen, welcome to the show. Look, I'm excited because this is the very first installment of the talk show version of Perspective. And this is something I've been wanting to do for a very long time. So I want to get right into the first topic, which is Black masculinity and mental health. And there were some major factors. So I sent you guys an article to sort of check out and give me your perspective on. And here are some of the factors we're going to talk about. Systemic racism. Black men experience effects of slavery and ongoing discrimination, which can negatively impact mental health. Poverty. High poverty rates can contribute to mental health challenges, and we know about that. Implicit bias. Black men may experience implicit bias from medical providers. Societal expectations. Black men are always expected to be strong. We got to be stoic, which can discourage us from seeking help. And then it also talked about some cultural values, and I wanted to really get this in here really quick. It says that Black men may grow up believing that emotional and psychological health is not valued and that they should only focus on physical strength. So let's get into a lot of what we understand about Black masculinity and mental health. I can start off by saying that in most, if not all of my life, I've always heard to be tough, don't cry, men don't cry, don't shed a tear. What say you?
What I've heard a lot of times is more, it's less of what I've heard and more of what I've seen. In the community I grew up in, we see a lot of the times the guy on the corner, they're tough. They have this bravado with them, walking and talking in such a way that a young person like myself would want to aspire to be like. They don't have many issues, they don't cry. They go out and get what they need if they have to take it. And so when you grow up in the community that I grew up in, that's what your first instance, your first example of what masculinity is.
Absolutely.
And so when we see a masculinity in the Black community, I recognize that we don't have solid models.
Well, one of the first things that I try to look at when it comes to mental health is I don't like the name mental health because it feels like as though it's projecting a negative idea on it already. So
Okay.
I call it mental fitness, right? Because I feel this is something that you continuously have to work on. Just like you work out, just like you do anything else, it's something that you're continuously working on.
Absolutely.
There is no finished product, right? There's nothing wrong with us. There are things that we go through and we experience, and we just truly need to embrace it and understand it, and understand that, you know what, if we all believe in God, we all have to understand God doesn't make mistakes. So everything that's happened to you has happened to you for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
You have to learn and figure out what it was for you to gain from that, or to overcome from those things, right? So, but as far as when it comes to the male, I guess the definition of what a man is supposed to be, I think one of the things that we have right now is that I didn't have a man in my household, right? There was no man there. Everyone that I saw was very similar to, was like someone on the corner, someone who's affiliated, because I grew up in inner city Los Angeles. So all I knew were those guys, those are the OGs, those were guys who were affiliated. And they walked differently, they talked differently, they handled things differently. And it was always met with more of a violent, impact about it, right? So I think that we have to give our own definition of what we feel what a man is. I have a son who's 20 years old now. And I know that I talk to him about, sharing his feelings, talking to me what's going on. But if I disciplined him, I have a conversation with him so that he understands what I did, why I did it. So there is no misconstruction or misunderstanding of what I'm doing to him. It's to help him, right? To protect him, right? And I think that's what we really have to get back to, is a definition of what a man is.
Well, I agree with Donovan, but for most of my friends in Washington, D.C., we hung around in the corner because we talk about our issues. Like we'll go to the liquor store, and on a Friday night, we talk about our relationship with our women or previous job situation. So some of us went to that part of the weekend just to unbottle issues they have during the weekend. But other than that, I mean, it's real out here. I mean, a lot of guys out here suffering from mental health since the day they was born.
I think what people don't talk about is there's a difference between being a man and being a male. I've often said that being a man really is based on your character, your integrity, and what you build. And being a male is just your anatomy.
True.
That's the difference. But I want to talk about this systemic racism. What have you experienced being a black male, masculinity, the experience of post-traumatic slavery syndrome that exists in this country, or just your own experience being a black male every day? I've said this before. In this society, as a black man, as far as I can remember, there's always some sort of hurdle that I have to overcome. There's always some form of racism that I may have experienced, but I'm not a person who've always called out racism, like you're discriminating against me because of this. But I'm very woke, and I've noticed that. What's been your experience? What are your thoughts?
Well, I like to say racism happens even when white people are not in the room. What I recognized growing up, I grew up uptown DC, born and raised. So anybody from DC, it's good to see y'all. Uptown DC, born and raised. I didn't grow up with my mother and my father. So I grew up with my auntie, and there we already have racism taking its toll on me as it is. No father, no mother. My aunt had to do the best that she could. My best example of masculinity was my older brother, Marcel, who was being raised by my grandmother. So I got the opportunity to see what a real man, or so-called real man, looked like every Saturday. As I grow up, I recognize that all of my teachers, some of them didn't have college degrees, and majority of them end up being white. So I rarely got the opportunities to see what a real man looked like. Honestly, if it wasn't for me going to church, I wouldn't have an identity of what a man looked like. It was because of these figures in my church, these men that stepped up and had my family's back, I got the opportunity to see what a real man looked like. And what a real man looked like for me was Christ.
But how has systemic racism impact your trajectory in life?
And how it's impacted my trajectory now? I recognize that in spite of how far I'm going, I always have to consider if I'm engaging the right way, if I'm dressed the right way, if I'm making the right decisions based upon me knowing that this is a white man's society. I've had to engage in certain meetings and with certain people, questioning if I'm good enough, even though I've paid the price, even though I've worked hard. And so recognizing that there's always something around potentially stopping or even pressing up against my efforts to move forward, that's an aspect of racism that I recognize that has been challenging for me to even get through certain areas, but I've persevered.
For me, I don't know. I tend not to look at the negative in certain situations. I don't want any excuses, so I don't let the excuses stop me.
But
right?
what about on a macro level?
From a macro level, right? So if obviously I think I've experienced more of racism, I guess, I would say in more of the workplace at times, right? And I think it's just really more ignorance, right? I don't want to say that someone is against me because of the color of my skin.
Well, let's just say it this way. Do you believe living in America, racism exists?
Absolutely.
And do you believe that it's more concrete in your experience as a black male?
Of course.
How so?
I grew up in the era of Reaganomics. We had less resources. We had less of everything. My mother, even though it didn't impact me right away, it impacted my family. And so it was less jobs. There was no resource for the community outside of the churches. Then when they was out trying to take care of their family, they couldn't. So it was like that. You had to work for white families, like as a day worker. So it was so less of opportunities for women as well. So
I can definitely see it, from a standpoint from when I was in high school is, the LAPD. We say the LAPD was the biggest gang out there, right? Majority of them were white. So if it weren't for basketball, if it weren't for me, for basketball, or to keep me engage in other activities, I think that I've seen a lot of my friends get lost, you know, and you know, get pulled over, get shot, right, by LAPD, right, because of they fit the description, or you know, you're the police are patrolling in an area not to police that area to keep it safe, but to find problems, right, or to create problems. And I think that in general, you just being, like I said, from South Central Los Angeles, being able to see that, it was definitely a form of system.
So then how does poverty contribute? I'm sorry. How does poverty contribute to mental health challenges?
Poverty contributes.
Resources.
Poverty contributes in many ways. We consider even food deserts, for example. Poverty impacts what you eat, where you go, even your capability of thinking. For example, if a young person gets up in the morning and they don't have a healthy meal, guess what? They go to school, they might get some chips, they might get juice. And they go to school, their mind's not focused. They're maybe labeled eventually so-called ADHD, but they're not getting healthy diets. Poverty impacts us in so many ways because poverty moves you to have to make game time decisions for survival.
And it's a capitalistic society.
Poverty is profit.
Yeah, it's profit. I like that. Poverty is profit. It's a capitalistic society. And then you have all these social determinants. So when you wake up and you're just trying to figure out what you're going to eat for breakfast in the morning time, everything else and everybody else becomes your nemesis, right?
Absolutely.
Like you're pissed off at the world, your attitudinal about everything. It's because I think this is honestly part of the reason why a lot of guys got into the drug dealing game, right? I think living in a household where mom is working 2 and 3 jobs, pops may not be there. Nobody wants to go to school without the nice sneakers on. Jordans were super expensive, but the thing back then. And so you kind of go along to get along. If Choo Choo or Cut Nose Boo, just in case you're out there, just have nothing against you, Choo Choo. But if Choo Choo or Cut Nose Boo are out there hugging the block, doing their thing, then you're more likely to follow suit if you don't have a strong mental health or you don't have a male figure, a guidance or somebody in your life.
Well, I was a victim of one of those guys you talking about. I've been out there. I've been a victim of crime where I have got shot and the black police officer, instead of coming to my aid, he pat me down. Right? And so when it comes to the situation you're talking about, it's one of those things. You're suffering from low self-esteem, and you're gonna follow suit with that.
Did you have low self-esteem?
Oh yeah.
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 So you went along to get along.
I went along to get along. Back
It's
then.
doubt. You know, you don't know you don't know what you're capable of, right?
Right.
Because you've only seen what you've always seen.
Right.
I've only seen somebody else make it this far, and then they made it so far, they got shot, they got killed, or they got pulled away, they went to jail. So therefore, you only see how far you can go. It's literally it's like the science experiment with the fleas. I don't know if you've ever seen it. They put fleas in a jar, and they let the fleas jump as high as they want. The fleas jump as high as they want to, and they put a top on them. Right? They put the cap on them. Now the fleas can only jump so high. Right? Then they remove that after a while, after a week or so. They remove that, and the fleas will never jump as high as they possibly could. And every time a flea is born, they will only jump as high as the adult flea in front of them. So they would literally have passed that around. And now it becomes systematic, right? You've become a product of your environment. Because you've never seen something before. You've never been able to get outside of that. So that's the issue that we have, is when we stay in where we are, we only see what we see. We're unable to see what's possible, right? So that's one of the biggest things that we have, is that we're in these environments, and if we don't get away, or we don't push others away so they can go off and see other things.
But do we know how to, though? And that's the thing.
Exactly, and I agree. You know, it's the how to, but it's
a good point.
It's just still having the ability to say, you know what, that's why I'm real big on the military. You join the military, do something just to get away. Go to college, do something, just get away, so you can get away from see something else. Because it's just hard. It's hard getting out of that.
To your point. So my organization, Street Love. We go into Street Love Incorporated. We go to YSC, Youth Services Center. We go to New Beginnings. Majority of these young people are young people who are doing the murder and the robbing, the killing. They're doing a lot of these things in the community. And when they first came to us, say, hey, can you guys engage with these young people? And we were pretty confident that we could do the work. One thing that we recognize is what you're talking about. The young people's mind is so caved in with what they cannot do. They cannot see anything outside of it.
They're limited
so
themselves.
what our aim is to engage with these young people in such a way that they're having fun.
Yeah.
But the entire time we're trying to expose them to certain things. So I might put gospel music on. They say, man, this is trash. You know, they're using their words. This is whatever. And the next time they come around, they say, hey, Cam, can you put that on? When you start to expose them to certain things, their mind starts to open up.
Absolutely.
And the issue with us is recognizing or really moving them to believe that they can. And so as black men, as older black men, we have to position ourselves with specifically our young black boys and our communities to let us know that we can do it. We've been exposed, now it's our time to expose others.
Yeah.
It's definitely a mindset.
Yeah.
We have to shift the mindset.
Let's shift to implicit biases. Have you experienced implicit biases, particularly in the medical field or just in life, where you have the perpetuation of stereotypes and people often have these preconceived notions of who they think you are? Like, black men are strong and you don't need the pain pills and you can handle this. And sometimes I believe medical or health disparities come from that. But if you can identify any implicit biases you may have experienced, or what say you about this topic?
I'll give you one that probably, no disrespect to anybody on the panel, but I get biased all the time because I'm a larger gentleman, right? I'm 6'4", 240.
Pause. Larger? Pause.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. I just had to. He said it. He said
I'm a bigger guy. I'm a bigger guy. I'm a taller guy, right?
Yeah.
So literally, if I'm in the airport, right, I'm like, oh, what the first thing somebody says is, oh, what team you play for?
Yeah.
And to me, that's actually kind of very disrespectful in the fact that, you know what, why do I have to be at this size and that's the only thing that you think I'm good at, right? Yes, I did go to school to play ball, and I was, that I got scholarships and things like that. But that's not,
because that's a stereotype.
That is a stereotype.
That just keep living and living.
It's a slave mentality, right? Like you're looking at, you see the bigger guy, and he's like, okay, I gotta have
Shaq O'Neal. So does it force you to be the teddy bear? Like, for instance, Shaq is known as the big guy. He's really kind and cordial. And America loves Shaq. But that implicit bias, I believe that maybe he annihilated just because in his subconscious, I don't want people to see me the way you describe. So I have to always be super nice and cordial and kind, rather than just being who you are, and whatever people think of you, so be it.
Definitely in boardrooms, if I'm having conversations with people, if I exert myself, right, if I project my voice, I can come off as being, they would think I'm being...
Sure.
I'm being, aggressive. I'm being aggressive.
I hate that.
Right?
Threatening.
So, but yeah, I'm being threatening. Or if when I manage people before, I would have a conversation with, a smaller young lady, and I'll have a conversation with her, and she thinks I'm intimidating, right?
Yeah.
Well, it's like, okay, I've had to learn how to sit down and have a conversation with somebody, right?
Yeah.
I can't stand up. I have to sit down when I'm talking to people. So I can't use, sometimes I have to put my hands in front of me like this, because if I get animated and use my hands, they're going to think they feel
How
as
does
though
that
they're being
make you
defensive.
feel? Because my heart hurts for your heart.
Because I have to shrink myself to fit what you feel as comfortable. And that sucks because the fact that I have to make myself smaller to make you feel comfortable.
See, I just can't do it. To me, honestly, all in my life, I've experienced people feeling intimidated by me because I'm probably not what you see on the news on a regular basis. I'm not being ostentatious. I'm just telling you what my life has been.
Absolutely.
It's been a case that this is a Negro that dressed well, he speaks well, he demonstrates wellness, he's exemplary to his community, and he's flawed, but I try to camouflage the flawness because my mom and dad have always said to excel at whatever you do, right? So that's always been in my conscience, whether I'm cleaning the street, dumping trash, or working in corporate America. I've always wanted to be my best. So I'm conscious of going with your head up. I know I have turbocharged confidence, and that doesn't sit well with people, but I've always experienced some sort of implicit bias just because I don't fit the stereotype of what you see on the news. And hasn't been challenging for me anymore as I've become much older, because I'm really confident and esteemed. I just don't go along to get along. You don't have the disease to please as you get older.
Right.
If that's what you feel of me, what you think of me, it's not my business.
Right.
And so I move in that space, but I am conscious of the biases and stereotypes that we all experience as men of color. You want to say something?
Oh, your problem, I don't have those. I have the trajectory of my disability. People tend to take my disability like a shortcoming.
Do you mind sharing what that is?
I'm here in the speech period.
Yep.
So therefore, I've been like this my whole life. Can't help it. So when they found out them actually smarter than what they are,
Yep.
then I'm being the bad guy, or they want to come for me, like, because I will go off on you, and like in the sense like talk to you directly, like, look, don't talk to me that way.
Yep.
Right.
They'll get mad and say, hey, you're being aggressive. No, you thought I was slow or
Yep.
incompetent.
Yep.
Now I challenge you.
Yep.
Now you're intimidated by me.
And he's really a nice guy. Terrence and I have known each other, Ted, since 19. I think you were 19 at
We was
UDC.
in community college. We took a course together.
Yeah, we did.
Social studies.
And we've been cool ever since. Down to earth, I never looked at him for, I don't even consider it as a disability. I just consider it as your way of navigating through life.
Right,
But I get
absolutely.
that society plays a label, puts a label on it. So just always been cool, always been down to earth. And I can imagine living in a world of being challenged with hearing and speech, that people either treat you too nice, because I'm sure there are many people who are disabled, if you will, that
Right.
sometimes they just feel like don't treat me that way. I'm okay.
Right.
Like, don't let your biases of me being less than mean that I can't perceive and make it through. Look at what Stevie Wonder has done.
Right. Just because you
So
can't
you-
hear don't mean you can't do.
True,
Yeah.
true. So your disability can either hurt you or help you.
Good point. Yeah.
Right.
I think we
Mine's
all
helping.
have disabilities. Some aren't as evident as they are, right?
Yeah.
As certain are. So
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
it's gleaning on your gifts versus thinking about the disabilities.
Right.
I
That's
think
good.
even
Yeah.
even those things that you come with in this life are for a reason.
Yeah,
So your
correct.
disability, I'm not trying to be insensitive, but everything that we're born with is on purpose. I could have been
Absolutely.
6'4",
God,
right?
God
Yeah.
don't make mistakes,
I'm
man.
5'3", and I'm blessed to be 5'3".
And very comfortable with who he is. We work together, very comfortable. I'm sorry.
And no worries. And so I recognize, even being a shorter brother, I might come off as disarming. When I come into, I'm a so-called light-skinned man. I come into the space, they may think I'm trying to be a smooth guy, whatever the case may be.
You are. That's that light skin stuff.
see,
I'm
that's-
just kidding.
I can't-
I'm
I
just
can't hang with-
kidding,
I can't hang
people.
with
I'm
this
just
guy.
kidding. I know, I'm just
But
kidding.
he hating.
Yeah,
But
okay.
honestly, I'm coming in to do my job. I'm coming in, I know I'm powerful, I know I'm strong.
Absolutely.
And God has given me a gift and I'm going to use that gift.
Absolutely.
And some of the time when you and one of the issues may be that I do exude this confidence and know that I'm gifted, and some people may try to dim my light, but I know it can't be dimmed. And so as a black man, we have to, one, really fight against our own minds.
Yeah.
But then two, there's also racism happening or so-called
Within our
racism
culture.
rather,
Yeah.
inside of our own
Absolutely.
people.
Yeah.
And then outside of that, because the forces are puppeteering other people in our communities to press up against us.
Well, let me just say this, because I learned
Yeah.
this. I went to American University, had a white professor who created wokeness in me when I thought that black people could be racist. And I know you guys can email if you want, but this is how I personally feel, is my perspective. Black people can't become a racist.
They cannot.
We cannot. And here's the reason why. Because you have to have the power to oppress. We don't have the power to oppress. As an educated black man, I could be prejudiced towards another group of people who are less educated, but we don't have the power to oppress. If it is true that we're 13 or 14% of the population and whites are 72 to 73% of the population, and black males are 6% of the 13%, but over 50% incarcerated, I've given you more than I should. But the point is, we don't have the power to oppress. I can go into an interview, there are 4 white people and 1 black person, and I'm going in for that interview. Even if that black person scores me high in that interview panel, those 3 or 4 white people can all just sort of congregate and say, don't know if he's the best fit. They have the power to make sure I don't get the job. So we don't have the power to oppress, and that's what.
Is that just the law
being a
of, the law of
racist is.
numbers? Is it the law of numbers that you're saying?
Not necessarily it would be the numbers in macro, meaning
Right.
that there are a larger
More
group
of,
of
right.
whites in America. Yes, so we don't have the power to oppress. I can be prejudiced, I can be biased, but I can't be a racist.
And
But do you believe that we actually have the power to oppress ourselves, our own culture?
I believe it.
I agree.
I think that falls in a category of being biased, and maybe oppression is a derivative of that. If I were to have all 4 of us, and in this educational discussion, and someone comes in who is poorly educated or less educated, we have the power to make that person feel a certain way. But and here's the difference. When you look at the vicious cycle of poverty, right? And you look at how the vicious cycle of poverty, you may have health care, inadequate income, maybe education.
Mhm.
So you look at this circle, right? And you think of the hub and spoke. And when you look at that circle and going around in that circle, I may do extremely well in each one of those areas, but other people are not. It's very, very challenging to get out of the vicious cycle of poverty. If you're making 30,000 a year, but now you're poorly educated, you are living with income insecurity, food insecurity, you don't have stable housing, healthcare disparity. So the minute I start making more money, I may not be able to afford to now live in a better neighborhood.
Right.
And then if I can live in a better neighborhood, I don't have the money for better health insurance. So when you think about it in the macro, white people have the power to oppress because they can influence health insurance, they can influence your pay, they can influence your education. I'll leave you with this thinking. When you look at most cities, major cities, let's say Detroit, Chicago, Washington, D.C., New York City, and other places, we've had tons and tons of Black leaders. Why is it still the case that our children are failing? I mean, it's a colossal failure in our school system, even when we have Black leaders. Our kids are still learning from books that are outdated. And when you do get books that are dated, the money is going to a lot of these publishing companies that are making tons and tons of money off of Title I schools. There was a time in government, if you will, that you did not have Black leaders. We have many Black leaders today, and we're still facing some of the problems from 1980s or the early 90s. We're still dealing with that. Our teachers should be paid more. Our teachers should not be coming out of their pocket, paying for supplies when we give hundreds and thousands of dollars to other countries. We're dealing with a war right now with Ukraine, okay? And there are other countries that are suffering, like Haiti. So there's so much to be said when it comes to the implicit biases, when it comes to racism, when it comes to health disparities. We don't have the power to oppress a group of people.
So to your point, I agree with you 100%. When we think about racism, it's in the word, it's a race. These sets of people are first to the resources, and that's what happened. When they brought us over here on ships, we recognized white people were the first to get to the resources such as economic power, government. They were the first to get there. So when Orlando talks about making sure that we don't have the power to oppress, it makes the most sense because they were the first to get to religion in a sense. They gave us the so-called religion that we have now. Were the first to wealth. They were the first to gather these resources, and now they're on top. So it's hard for us to be able to get through that barrier, and it's not easy for us to be able to break through. So that's where the oppression really comes from. So we don't have the power to dominate them in that way. That's why the oppression is. I mean, racism.
So I'm a challenger in the sense of like I agree that we can't do it individually. I think that is the biggest thing that we are looking at it from a community standpoint. We literally tend to go on these journeys by ourselves. There's not a whole lot of collaboration when it comes to our communities and doing things together, because as soon as we see somebody else doing it, somebody wants to try to either take that from you, because again, it's a mentality that's been embedded into us. So when we talk about our habits, we talk about our diet, we talk about that. That's a mentality, that's a habit. When we see somebody doing something, there's always going to be somebody else trying to take from that, right? So it's a crab in a barrel mentality. And then it starts there. It starts with changing and shifting the way that we think collectively as a group.
But
and I know, and it's hard, but it is education. But it's also taking responsibility. I think the biggest thing that we do right now, when we look at education, right, one of the things that we focused on is that we talk about the schools not educating our kids. That's the problem.
Sure.
The parents have to help educate our children.
But the parents are outside of the house working 2 or 3 jobs, because in America, 90% of the jobs in America are service-driven jobs, and Blacks in America make on average between 40 and 60,000 a year. Everybody's not making 70, 80, $90,000 a year.
I hear you.
So when you're out of the house,
But it's
kids,
again, it's a sacrifice. So if you look at like look at other cultures that are coming here. They're coming here. They're living together. They're building each other up. There's somebody's responsible for this. You got multiple people going out. Everybody wants to be independent. I can't wait to get out this house
But look
so
at
I
the
can go
key
off
word
and do
you
it.
say.
But again, if we look at it from that standpoint, it goes back to the Willie Lynch theory of what we talked about earlier. It's literally dividing us so that we're going off and we're trying to do all these things by ourselves.
But we don't have culture.
That's
you said
what
the key
I understand.
word.
That's what racism is.
Right, I understood,
This is what racism
but
is.
I understand that. But what I'm saying is that we are not recognizing that portion right there is everybody wants their independence, right? If you even look now when it comes to being in relationships, women are fighting men based off of their income. They're putting themselves above them, to make them feel less than, and vice versa. And even men in certain positions want to hold their power and their status over someone else to make them feel incompetent, right?
Yeah.
So again, it has to be a collective. When we talk about these things, it's like this, man. If we want to get ahead, we got to sacrifice if you and I want to go off and build something, build a business, build whatever it is, we got to look at each other and say, okay, well, what's the most economically smart way to do this, right? Hey man, I'm gonna move in with you, bro. I'm gonna save my money. I'm gonna start stacking my chips. We're gonna do this. We're gonna go off and build this thing, right? And then we're gonna move into this house, and then we go, you know what I'm saying?
It's a few factors there. First of all, we're talking about trustability, and we're talking about culture. In America, we were enslaved here, and we're searching for, or have searched for, identity. When you look at other cultures, right? When Asians come, when Hispanics come, it is not uncommon for several people to live in a household and let each person bring an income to build up to what you're saying. To your point, it has been independence, because in America, listen, your parents ask you, when are you leaving once you turn 18?
18, and that's the problem.
And that's the mindset.
That's the problem. And that's what I'm talking about.
Problem.
It is literally, we want to, again, we want grace, but we're not willing to give grace.
We deem success as if you're
I'm independent. I'm doing everything on my own, right? You on your own. If you talk to every child, because that's what we've instilled in them.
That's right.
And if you look at other cultures, and again, we want to create our culture, we have to create it. And that's not necessarily mean collectively. That's your household.
That's right.
That's your household. Hey, you are not going to go off to do this. You're not moving out this house till 25.
That's right.
You're gonna stay here. You're gonna push back into this household. We're gonna put something together. We're gonna get educated. We're gonna learn something. But again, it starts with the education.
That's true.
It starts there.
It starts with the education.
It starts at the education.
I agree.
But again, it's not just education out there. It has to be educated, because we have way too much access. You can't tell me all these kids are walking around with, they have a computer in their pocket.
Right.
There is no
Absolutely.
there's not that many excuses like it was before. Do you know how to keep a Negro down? They used to tell us, put it in a book, put the information in a book. Well, guess what? You can download a book on your phone right now. And you can listen to a book on your phone right now.
I think it's the most challenging time, because the young person's mind is being co-opted by the phone. And so while I can see your vantage point, this is the best time possible, it's actually not the best time possible. When we didn't have much access on the phone, we had more opportunities to engage our kids, engage our wives, engage our families. Right now, the government, the social media has our family's attention. And the question is, how can we grab their attention from social media? They're now addicted. So what we have to figure out is, how do we get a hold on our family in such a way where they're not so addicted to that?
How do they get addicted? You gave them a phone.
So hold on. So
they don't have the money to go out and purchase a phone.
And that goes back to the point.
We bought them that.
That goes back to the point of culture.
It does.
Do we really want to get away from the culture, or have we conformed to the culture? In our hearts, we say we want community. We say we want to do things. We want to move forward. But in reality, what we're not willing to do, we're not willing to actually be the anomaly.
We're not willing to copy and paste.
Well, let's just call it thing.
We're not willing to copy and paste.
But
that's the biggest thing.
We're Africans that are struggling in an Anglo-Saxon society and social construct, and we're trying to find our way. I don't know what country I am from unless I do Ancestry.com or some other sort of ancestry search.
You look kind of
engine.
Kenyan a little bit, maybe.
Maybe Kenyan, but then it could be.
I'm sub-Saharan.
I could be Ghanaian too. I could be Ghanaian. Unless I'm Cameroon and I'm from the elite tribe.
But when it comes to the education, it actually starts from home. Bottom line,
I agree.
Right? Like I have a 29-year-old, and at the time I was a single dad, and I had to make sure I got a tutor for my child. Again, I believe in getting coaches, tutors, whatever need to be resourceful for the household. And during that 2-year period, I had to sacrifice.
Yep.
Make sure that kid get educated. And now he's
Mm-hmm.
doing well.
Yeah.
And that's, like I said, and that goes back to what I was saying, is that someone has to sacrifice. To create a legacy, somebody has to take that risk.
So let's take the risk on this last topic or discussion around this topic, and that is the substance abuse. It says that Black men are more likely to abuse substances like alcohol, marijuana. What is going on in America?
I don't think it's just. I think it's
Overall.
nationwide.
It is. But this is about Black men, Black masculinity, and mental health, and we can have a care for everybody else.
We want to zoom in,
but I want to hone in on what is going on in the community.
All right.
It's been like that since from the liquor stores, from the heroin.
But just because it's been like that, I still want to know what is going on, because it seems to have been exacerbated. And how do we get a hold on this? Everybody, I don't want to throw out any names of alcohols because I don't want to be sued, but everybody is.
Remember what I just said, it goes back what we talked about earlier about followers. The individual suffering from low self-esteem. They're suffering from something that's deep rooted from the household. They feel like they can't get away from.
Right. They're running away from something.
Exactly. Running away from their thing because so they utilize the alcohol, drugs, or whatever else to get away.
As an escape.
And grandma used to say, if you know better, you do better. And a lot of us don't know better.
Yeah.
We don't know better. As much as we would like to say, I had a young brother in my car before I got here. And he had an issue. He told me that he was going to crash out. A lot of young people say, I'm going to crash out. And I said, what do you do? What do you feel it in your body when you get angry? So I've gone through these things. I work with young people all the time. So I understand the challenges with mental health and where they feel in their body, where they get hot. And a lot of times, if you read The Body Keeps a Score, it teaches you, and the Deep as Well, it teaches you that trauma is trapped in your body. So when we're reacting to some of these things, we're not recognizing that it's subconscious. You spazzed out, so-called, and you didn't recognize that it's happening before it's actually happening.
Yeah.
And so I actually did some breathing exercises with a young man, and you'd be surprised that he really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
One of my young brothers that I have a group with, construction group with, we before we get into the lesson, I'll come in and we'll engage them. And I told them how to do a whistling technique. And this is teaching these young brothers how to breathe, how to connect, how to ground, how to connect with their body, their fingers and their toes. God has given us a body that we are not attached to. And so I genuinely believe that if you know better, you do better, and our young people do not know better.
Yes.
The fathers don't know better. So I'll say this, you have a 29-year-old son, I have an 8-year-old son. My son was 1 year old. While he did not understand me fully, it was a time to reflect.
Yep.
I sit with him, I tell him to breathe. I tell him do you understand me? Calm your body, calm your breathing. God has given us breathing. He's given us a mind. He's given us a body. We as men have to be the covering, and we'll talk about this later, the covering to engage our children on how to stabilize our emotions. And we have not conquered that because we're afraid, like you said. And so I think it's a lot to it.
Well, speaking of emotions,
if you don't mind, one of the first things that we truly have to understand as a culture too is patience. Right? It takes time.
Yeah.
The thing is that we have is, like you said, you have a 1-year-old, right? Okay, you can't react to your 1-year-old learning and get upset with him, right? It requires patience. So it takes time. So you have to take the time to teach him. You got to take the time to, have that conversation with him, right? So as I mentioned earlier, when me and my son would get into certain things, or when I disciplined him, it would never be I would just discipline him and I just leave it at that. No, I would have a conversation with him. You know why I did this? These are the reasons why. Well, you did this, and this, right? So you have to learn from that. So it takes that patience and takes that time for you to do that. And I think that one of the things that it's because we are in the struggle that we're in, we want it to happen fast.
It's emotional regulation.
And so when we talk about the drug dealing, taking drugs, right? And we're taking, or being a drug dealer, or looking at these at the role models, right? It's a quick fix. So the drug is life.
Yeah.
The drug is trying to get something quicker, right? So it's escaping from reality. It's escaping from what I see on a day-to-day basis, where I am and where I want to be. And I don't know, and it's a confusion, right?
Yeah.
Confusion is the devil. If I don't know how to get there, I'm confused. I'm sitting in my thoughts and I don't know what else to do. So I gotta turn to a bottle. I gotta turn to a pipe, or I gotta turn into a needle. I gotta turn to a blunt, whatever it is. I gotta turn to something to escape. Because I can't, I'm hearing my voices and I don't know how to calm it down.
And I think that's the mental health piece is so much is going on in your head.
Mhm.
And you have all the social determinants in life, right? I don't have money. I'm unemployed. I'm not looking my best. I can't do for my girlfriend. I'm not able to engage in social activities, and I have to find escapism. And then you become angry and attitudinal. As an addiction therapist, I'm still in that field of behavioral health. One of the things I learned early on is that a lot of people who do drugs, particularly marijuana, most of them have a mood disorder. You're attitudinal, you're angry. When I used to hear people say, bruh, I'm just trying to clear my head. What you're trying to do is escape from what you're going through. I've learned in my training there are 3 reasons why people use drugs: to feel good, to feel better, and out of
escape.
curiosity.
That was our generation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that still holds today. Just think about this. You're 12 years old, you're hanging with 18-year-olds and 15-year-olds, and you see them smoking and drinking. You become curious. Your prefrontal cortex is not fully developed until about 25 years of age.
Right.
You have a curiosity for it. So you going along to get along. You have the disease to please. They're doing it. I want to do it. I want to fit in. Then there's another component, which is to feel good, right? You want to feel good. We all are hanging out, right? And I want to feel good because you're turning up, I'm turning up, and that's just what it is. And then you want to feel better. That's the escapism. Life is overwhelming. I have bills coming in. Mom can't afford for me to play basketball, football, or be a part of things.
More bills than I got money right now.
More bills than you have money. And now you say, you know what? I just need to feel better for 5 minutes. I can't handle this.
And you know what happened? You have to hit rock bottom to find yourself in God. Bottom line. If you don't hit rock bottom, how would you know you?
Yeah, but do we want everybody to hit rock bottom?
When you already in that path?
These kids are already hitting rock bottom. They're shooting
They started
us.
from the bottom, yeah.
Yeah, but it could differ from my generation to generation, their generation, right? So I'm not tapped into their generation because I got a 29-year-old. That's his job to tap into their generation. My job is to advise and give ideas what you can and can't do.
Well, I think that's tapping in because I do believe that we have a fiduciary obligation to take the hand of a young male. Just think if every black male, including each one of us, educated, living a relatively decent life, if you take the hand of another black male, you will raise a nation of esteemed black men.
But
There you go.
I have a
That's what we just talked about, though.
Yeah,
it
you
takes
have
us,
to.
we
they're
have to
so
follow.
angry though.
But you were angry. I was probably angry too, but no one gave up on us.
And this is
They're
one-
more angry.
This is the one piece. I promise you, I've went into these juvenile facilities, and people will say, "Cameron, how do you do it? How do you do it? The same way you did it with your son? Love is patient. Love is kind. Love does not envy, does not boast. It bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things. Love never fails."
Yeah.
And so when we talk about our black boys and what they need, yes, they are angry. Why shouldn't they be angry?
Right.
What was my father? I saw crackheads on the street. I have a buddy who's locked up 21 years. He saw his father at 4 years old get his head blown off. So when we're talking about why they angry, they have a reason to be angry. When they meet love, when they meet real, not fake love, not the arrow, not the brother, I'm talking about real agape love, it's going to change their heart. I done had boys who did not like me and trying to figure out why does Mr. Cam act the way he does? And you've seen it with your own eyes.
Yeah, we worked together
Yeah.
and we used to be a part of a group on Wednesdays, and these were guys that were deep from the trenches. I mean, when I say that the soul had a hole as wide as, you know, a shoe at the bottom with a big hole in it, you can really see through them, right? It was, and this gentleman right here, this guy, Cameron, changed lives. I have witnessed it, have come in and connected with guys who really don't want to hear anything you have to say if they don't even feel a connection with you. Because people don't care what you know until they know what, that you care.
And again, that's patience, right?
Yeah.
It goes back to that. It's always going to refrain back to that, right? And then it goes to where, you know, you're being a leader now, you're building followers to follow you to do something different.
Well, let's see if people follow this next topic because we need to switch. This was really good. I want to get into Trump calls DEI programs illegal because he plans to end them in the federal government. He says that DEI programs are illegal. Diversity, equity, inclusion. Do you believe that Black people today are still benefiting or need DEI, or more white women are benefiting from DEI? What say you?
It was funny because I was actually, listening to a couple of YouTubes on the way over here, and someone did mention that, it's not just black and white. We're talking about disabled, impaired,
Schedule A.
impaired, right? We're talking about people who identify as something different, right? It's literally everybody. So you're telling me that you want to eliminate the possibility of you including everyone,
Sure.
and how much that has an impact on everybody. You know what I mean? But for the topic of the conversation is how it impacts black people and us in general, is that, I usually, when I go to my meetings, I'm the only black man in the room.
Yeah.
Only black man in the room.
I've been in that space before.
And it's a very different feeling, because when you look around, it's like there's no one in here that looks like me.
But did DEI get you that job?
No, absolutely not. It did not give me that. It did not get there. Again, I made it there. To me, I personally feel I made it there on my own.
Merit.
And that's it, on my own merit. I worked hard to get where I was at.
Absolutely.
I took advantage of opportunities and put in front of me. And I think that's the difference between when you remove yourself from your environment, there are opportunities out there. And yes, I understood, like the DEI is giving you chances to get to the door.
Yeah.
It's not going to push the door open for you.
Yeah.
You have to take that. You got to take advantage of that.
And why do you say?
Because it goes with your presentation.
Yeah.
It goes with your articulation, right?
Yeah.
And it goes back to you just how
Your skill set.
Your skill set. Your skill set, your mindset, right? And
Your skill set.
if I know I can do this job, and I believe I'm doing this job, and I'm doing my job, I'm good at my job.
So then why do you
It's gonna be
think Trump
recognized.
wants to remove it and he says it's illegal?
Yeah. So you want to say something?
No, you can go right ahead.
Yeah, no. So I think it's a conglomerate. I think it works all together. Black History Month, MLK Day. I think it's all working together specifically because, like we know, DEI is not just for black people. But when we take away DEI, when we take away MLK Day, when we take away these things, you know what is next to be taken away or never to be discussed again? Reparations. We haven't even considered.
We ain't getting those, man.
No, but here we go. When
Yeah.
Obama
We ain't
was in
getting-
You are
office,
not going to Louis
Weird.
Vuitton
when,
with that
when
reparations money.
Obama was in office, when Obama was in office, even when Bernie Sanders was running, we started to discuss how to repair the black community. We started to discuss and consider, not when he was in office, but when he was running. We started to discuss and consider. Now what happens is we have a lot of black people who are even talking about the fact that DEI doesn't need to be here. Now, I recognize that white women are taking advantage of DEI, but what happens when they get us to be agreeable? What happens when they get us to be agreeable? They start taking things away, one after another, and pulling the layers. Before you know it, they're taking history out of our schools. They're taking everything meaningful, specifically with black history and the things that we need in our
Because
country.
books have been banned. That's been a whole movement to ban books.
So now what we really need in order to revitalize the black community is repair the black community. And if we can never get there, we will consistently be behind. No matter, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I heard someone say, and I thought this was an interesting perspective. Why are black Americans resting on the minds of white America? Why are black Americans depending on the social constructs of white America for our outcomes?
I personally think that this is one of the issues that we have.
And not to make this a whole race thing, but the reality is when you think about environments that our children go to school, that we work in, you want it really to be as diverse, but you definitely want to make sure there's equitability for all. You want to make sure that everybody get a chance to sit at the table.
Right.
So I think DUI is critical, but again, is that really needed? And it wouldn't be needed if racism and discrimination wasn't prevalent. We wouldn't have all these different programs.
It's needed for our veterans when they go to war,
Mm-hmm.
and they need to start over again. Because they went into war with their whole body limb can come home with one arm and one leg, so they have to. Then also the children that has disability. So when they trying to build them, some kids are autistic. So you gotta have that workforce program for those kids so they can migrate into the regular work world, right? So that's going to be a huge impact for any race.
So you think he's making a big mistake?
Definitely. It's going to hurt him. Especially under the ADA law, that's a protection class. That means you might as well go ahead and take that away and you can't.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, I'm a realtor and investor as well. And then like thinking about like redlining, right? In certain
Yes.
areas, like you look at
Yes.
it's definitely evident and prevalent in the communities. I mean, Baltimore sees it a lot. Crazy thing about Baltimore, literally, you can go one block over. Some houses are 200,000, and go one block over, and they're 700,000.
Yeah.
The same row houses.
Yeah.
The only issue is the material that they were made out of,
Yeah.
right? So because you can tell like how those houses were built and who lived there before. So when you start looking at like DEI, that's going to have an impact on things like that. You're going to see where now mortgage professionals can discriminate on people, right, of color or people of disabilities or sex, sexual orientation, whatever it may be,
And
right?
religion.
And that's not fair. And that's not fair.
You said what?
I say sometimes it could be one of those things where people could be having mental issues, right? And they might not be the best of like competent enough, right?
Mhm.
But they have somebody that coach them, and you taking that away.
Let's just call a thing a thing. Do we believe that President Trump and others who espouse that thinking want to annihilate DEI for the purpose of increasing or enhancing white supremacy?
I honestly think it's twofold. If I'm being objective, I recognize that during the last presidency with Joe Biden, there were other things that were coming to our schools. There were other things that were coming in that just weren't wholesome. When we consider what our young people are reading in the textbooks, when we consider some of the things that are happening to our children regarding the whole LGBTQ movement, certain things were unnecessary. And so what they do specifically in the conservative realm is they use these narratives to perpetuate all over the DEI piece when it's not its entirety. And so that's what we're dealing with right now. We have one segment or one area that is off kilter, and then we're using this entire piece to paint the entire conglomerate. And that's not the truth.
That's the biggest issue that we have, is that unfortunately, like it's being televised, right? The DEI issues are being televised. That's what they're talking about. That's what people are talking about.
Yeah.
But there's something underlining going on behind it that we don't even know about, right?
Course.
And that's what we need to focus on. I don't know what it is, because like I said, I don't watch news like I was telling them earlier. I'm not a big fan of the proponent of news, because I feel like it's just nothing ever positive. So I just choose for my mindset and my mental wellness. I prefer not to watch the news, because it's never anything nice. So and I'll get updates from my phone and see some of the things that are going on. I read the article that you sent me, and I looked at a lot of things on YouTube. And I think that it's kind of like the Wizard of Oz, right? It's don't look behind the curtain, right?
Yeah.
This is what's going on. Hey guys, we're talking about DEI. Well, what's really going on?
Right.
What's really going on? Like he wants to come out and say that DEI caused a plane crash.
That's insane.
You know what I mean? Like
Well, he said the
that's
policies.
ridiculous.
I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. When my wife told me we had to actually look at the video, because I couldn't believe he said it.
Yeah.
It was outrageous.
Yeah. I just think it was just disrespectful. It was really disrespectful. Sure. It was a sacrilege to God and the lives that were lost, to think that
he didn't even acknowledge that. He acknowledged it for two minutes.
Yeah.
And it immediately went to something else.
But here's the thing, and I've heard somebody else say this: as people of color in this country and Black Americans, are we depending too much on white America's standards?
Yes, 100%. I think one of the big, if it goes back to, religion. Right. If you look at religion, especially and it was so prevalent during slavery and during like in the South, right? If you look at how we always pray to God, we're gonna pray on it and everything, but then there's no action.
Yeah. There's
nothing that goes on about it. It's like it's your way. It's a hope. It's a dream. It's you're selling me something, the idea of something, right? But they always talk about if a prayer without action is just a hope, right? And I think that's the biggest thing, is that we're praying or we're hoping for reparations. We're hoping for things just to happen on their own, but we're not taking the responsibility.
We're always hoping. We're trying to overcome. We hoping we should.
But we ain't doing nothing. We ain't doing nothing.
And this is why I got into the field of policy, because to me, policy influences everything, and you follow the money. Policy is dictating funding.
100%.
100%.
And that's what I said. But we're doing it by ourselves, so we have to collectively come together. And we talk about these policies. We got to push those policies together.
We're afraid.
Yeah, we're afraid because it's so
100%.
close.
Because all of our leaders have been
because
killed.
what happened in the past.
Mhm.
Hold up. Afraid of what?
From what happened in Oklahoma and Tulsa when we had our own
Black Wall Street was annihilated.
Correct.
Martin Luther King was assassinated. Malcolm X was assassinated, right?
But not only that, we recognize that we don't want to be ostracized. Sometimes it's just a surface level. You don't want to be the black man talking about we need to overcome. So it sounds good right now on the perspective, but a lot of times we don't want to be the person to say, I don't want my child learning that in school. I want to assure that my child is eating a certain way. I want to ensure that my family is learning a certain way. You will have to be the anomaly in order to move forward. Absolutely. And we're not ready to do that. That's the fear of daddy. Daddy, big daddy government, big daddy society. And so what we have to do is be bold enough. My man Earl Nightingale says the opposite of courage is not cowardice. The opposite of courage is conformity. The reason why we are not moving the way we need to move is because we have conformed to their thinking and their ways. And going back to your point, the way that we move out of that is, in fact, a relationship with God. When we recognize what God actually did in the Bible, and I'm going to just keep it all the way 100 with y'all.
Go for it.
God was not playing when injustice was happening. He sent plagues. God did not like injustice. He did not like slavery. So he sent plagues. And we need to get back to the truth and the root. So when we get back to the truth and the root, the family structure is taken care of. We get back to the truth and the root, then your children are not out there gangbanging.
But what does that look like? Because I think this next topic that we're going to get into, particularly getting back to the family and you guys are married and so forth, the danger of social media on marriage and family. So let's just go ahead and switch topic and get into it. Because you have so many people out there that's listening to everybody who's not an expert about something. And this is the reason why I created this show, Perspective, is because everybody has one. And I'm always fascinated. What's your perspective? What's yours? What's yours? And the thing that I realized is that everybody out there who's giving a perspective is not a prowess in the subject that they're talking about. People just sort of just putting information out there is incorrect information, and it's impacting a lot of marriages and families. What say you, married men?
Oh, for me, knowing who you about to marry, first and foremost, know your partner. See where she at. See where he's at. About their mentality, about being on social media. I don't have those problems. So it's all about trust in God.
Yeah, I think we got to recognize before we even get to the marriage part who designed it. Yeah. We got to recognize who designed marriage to begin with before we can even get there. God created a product, and we're mishandling his product.
Is the institution of marriage a lie?
Oh no, I don't think so at all.
No,
I don't think so at all. I think the institution of marriage is, in fact, the first institution created, but one of the best institutions to make sure that we have a strong country. I believe that wholeheartedly. Think about it. When you have man and woman raising child, obviously they need to be rooted in solid principles, solid values, but that child has a higher percentage of coming out strong and doing the same thing for the next generation.
So then why is social media impacting families?
I think it's one of the issues that you have is, especially when it comes to marriage. I think that, and I said this to you guys earlier, I think that some people, and I think nowadays, they think is marriage as the finish line. And it's not the finish line, it's the starting line, right? That is literally, that is what you have said that you're going to start your life together because you've made it official, right? And some people want to just be married. They just want to have somebody to say they got somebody.
Yes, a lot of people just want somebody.
I just want somebody to say I got somebody.
They're tired of holding that pillow at nighttime and it's cold.
But yet they don't truly understand what that marriage is and how it is a partnership, how it is a unification, how you will have tough times and you will have struggles. And it's all about choice, right?
But you know what I've noticed? People who've been together for 10, 15, and 20 years and a husband or a wife can't be on social media. And if you are on social media, and be honest, guys, because you're married, you are on social media, and if you like another woman's picture too many times, or she's dressed sexually clad, like she's already sort of divested some of those items and she looks really good, and your wife sees that and it begins to have this conversation that I find sometimes to be insecurity, because if the trustability is there and God is there and you conflate both of those things, it should be the greatest force that no human being can annihilate.
Well, you should know your limit, first of all. You should know your limit. You should know your limit. And then even if she has...
Oh, so there's a limit. So
no,
you've liked a lot of pictures.
No.
Oh, no. I was just...
He only got 10 likes a day. He only got 10 likes a day.
He was just like...
I freeze my capacity.
She walked in there and said, that was 10.
That was 10. Don't you hit that
No,
11.
don't hit that 11, but
Right.
No, internally you should know your limits,
Yeah.
honestly. And then also, even if he or she have an issue, bring it to me. Or bring it to that person so that way it could be a conversation.
it's not that easy, though.
My
No,
wife,
for me it is.
my
It
wife,
is, okay.
my wife doesn't even have social media. My wife doesn't have social media. She really didn't care about it. I even asked her to get one, but she didn't care about it. Our biggest thing is one, going back to your point about the liking the pictures. I gotta guard my eyes anyway. So if I'm recognizing that I'm getting twerking on my algorithm, why is this on my algorithm to begin with? So I gotta report this. I gotta make sure it's off my algorithm.
I'm not reporting that.
But watch this. But
I'll
watch
watch
this.
it, but I'm a
I'm
scroll.
watching it. Okay, I ain't gonna like this.
This-
but I'm
this-
So
watching
you're
it.
reporting the twerk?
No, I'm saying what I'm saying. No. I'm saying.
Twerker.
What I
know she was mad too.
What I
Who reported my
am, what I
stuff?
am saying is,
Yeah.
I gotta guard my eyes. I gotta guard my eyes. And the reason is because my job is to cover my house. If my eyes, my heart, my mind is off kilter thinking about something else that I shouldn't be thinking about, then I'm out of position.
So
to deal with.
let's parse that
Sure,
a little bit,
let's
because
go ahead.
what does that really mean? Like, as human beings, we have an affinity, right? Your wife sees a nice looking guy, you see a nice looking woman, and you may or may not have a conversation. There are couples who be like, oh wow, she looks beautiful. And the wife says she does. And that's the end of it. But when you have that sort of trustability, you don't just lose sight when you become married.
That part.
And so why is the influence of the external world having to navigate what's going on internally if it's already protected by God?
So when we reckon, we have to be honest with ourselves. We want to make sure that our youth are watching what they see. We're trying to make sure we're trying to make sure our youth watch what they see. So in the same regard, we know that television is trying to tell you something. It's trying to program you in a certain way. The same thing is happening with the media. So the more I see something, the more I'll think it's okay, the more I'll think it's acceptable. And so what I have to assure of, it's not even about my wife and her always feeling like what I'm looking at is unacceptable, but I also have to set a standard for myself and my family. So me and my wife might recognize, oh, that's a handsome brother.
Yeah.
I'm comfortable with my handsome brothers.
Yes.
We got handsome brothers here.
Yes.
Beautiful women. God has created us all. At the same time, we also have to recognize what is acceptable. And certain things I wouldn't personally be walking outside with, or want somebody of my family walking outside with. So why am I watching this on my phone?
Yeah.
And so we have to be mindful of what we're watching, and that's how it goes in my house. And I can't tell anybody for anybody else's house, but
that's how it works in your marriage. I respect
I just got to
that.
make sure that I'm watching the right thing.
Yeah.
That's what I say.
What? Oh, you? What? No.
I'm not touching this one, man.
No, go ahead, touch it.
You got to
Yeah.
Pause.
Touch
Let's see.
I'm telling you.
Touch it.
Listen, so again, I think that, I don't know, man, like with me, I've been down this road before where I've had these conversations with other people, and I'm personally, I don't care.
I'm with you.
I don't
with you.
care.
I don't care
I'm like,
either.
if you like, baby, go ahead.
I don't
And I'm
care.
like, you know
I
what?
don't
It's
care
cool.
either.
I'm like, it doesn't mean anything about me.
It doesn't.
It doesn't
I
mean
feel
anything
the
about
same
you.
way.
So you like somebody's picture. Okay, I see you like, okay, you like, so
And here's the thing. Let's call a thing here.
you're not blind.
There shouldn't be a ton of tappings,
Sure.
particularly on one picture
Exactly.
or
That's what
person,
we're talking about.
if in fact there's respectability in your marriage.
Right.
That's the bottom line to it. It's respectability, it's integrity, it's to honor your husband, to honor your wife. Your wife should be able to look at you and honor you. Although she sees another brother or whomever cut up, look nice, she should like more what she has at home, because what you see in 5 minutes is nothing but a false image of what you think the reality is when you don't know the story behind that person.
And then you got some women might not find the physical attribute attractive. They might like the conversation and the mental part. And so that's another
Hold
thing.
up, so the woman is in the DM saying, call me?
No.
No, because listen, no, I'm joking. But just say this, because we're talking like,
I'm just
if
saying,
you
like,
on
if
social media, look, oh, you mean when
like,
he's talking?
Say like we talking, we at
Yes,
the bar,
yes,
whatever.
yes,
like
yes.
traditionally.
Yeah, I
and
get what you're
she's
saying.
having a whole conversation.
Yes.
Like, oh damn, I'm vibing that. Like I'm giving you that good vibe. Like a lot of people have been taken away from the good vibe.
So let me ask you all this question, because now that you brought up that point, which is an excellent point, I do know a couple where the husband says he's tired of his wife coming in, and I don't know if you follow these sort of pastors or certain people who have these great advice, if you will, and the wife comes and says, see, he said this, and this is what you need to start doing, and this is the way it's supposed to be.
Go
and
with
you're
him.
like,
Again, that's a
go with him.
comparison. That's the issue that we need to stop.
Yeah.
You're comparing your
Right.
relationship or what somebody
but
else
that's
does.
her
to-
advisement is coming from
Listen,
social
no,
media.
this is our relationship. We need to create our relationship.
Right,
what works
right.
for you, and that's a
Exactly.
conversation to have, right? Legitimately, like to me, so I'm writing a book called Game On, and I literally talk about these things. You need to establish your baseline, where you are,
Yeah.
your finish line. What is your goal, right? Your rules or your boundaries, your
Yeah.
structure, right? You having partners, coaches, right? You want to bring people in, so that's a therapist. That's, I mean, they're maybe other family friends, things that the people that have don't have they're not taking sides. I think that's the biggest issue that we have with the relationships too, especially when I know, when I went through my divorce, is people jumped on sides. And it ain't got nothing to do with you.
Right.
Yeah.
It had nothing to do with you. Like, you know what? At the end of the day, I'm still a parent. Like when I told my ex-wife, I said, I'm divorcing you as my wife, not as a mother of my child. Right? Those are two separate duties and two separate
I'm
responsibilities.
divorcing you as my wife.
As my wife, not as a mother of my children. I can't change
that
that.
just made my heart bleed.
But I can't change that. You're
was-
still my
that-
you're still
you
my
didn't
you're
feel
still my
that?
child. You're still the mother of my child.
Yeah.
And we have responsibilities.
Yeah.
So therefore, it's like if you're this is what we're creating. We created co-parenting.
Yeah.
We created a functional environment for our children to
Is
thrive in.
everybody meant to be married?
No.
I don't
No,
think so. No.
I don't
No.
think so.
No.
You don't think so?
Marriage.
Did you feel that way before marriage?
Oh yeah.
Oh
I
yeah,
do.
yeah.
I love it.
Marriage is not for the faint of heart. It's
Yeah.
not for
It's
the
not
faint
easy.
of heart.
No.
It's beautiful and it's challenging at the same time. Worked well, I believe it can glorify so many different things. It can pull people into knowing themselves. It can give an imagery of God. It's so many great things that marriage can do. But done wrong, it can make a horrible testimony.
It can kill somebody, man.
can.
Yeah.
I love people who are married. I don't think I can do it. I love being single.
I can't wait.
I
to
love
go.
it. I love
I
it.
hope she sweep you off
I
your feet.
love
Whatever
no,
it is.
no,
Hey, you-
no,
I
no.
was just like
You're
that
not
too.
going. No,
I will call you
you're
Twinkle
not.
Toes.
You're not.
You're gonna be
You're not.
floating
You're
in here.
not going to
Watch.
interrupt my life, my peace, my money.
But that's what
But
love
I
is.
love other people who are married, and I respect other people's marriages. But I know me. After 5 minutes, I'm done.
Well, I look.
Like you say one thing, like I don't want to deal with the attitude, the energy, spending up money. You dress nice. I like it. I really like it for you guys.
So at the end of the day, you know what I look for? Going home, laying in the bed, waiting for my wife to put her foot on me.
Yep. That part.
You like that?
And just,
Oh, yeah,
but just understanding that, like
That's a
honestly,
comfort, man.
It is a
understanding
comfort.
that God, I really think about, and I look at my wife and I tell myself, man, God,
And- yeah.
you outdid yourself. Like I could never imagine, honestly. Me and my wife have ups and downs, but I could never imagine having a wife like this.
Now, let me just play devil's advocate.
Sure.
Isn't that what everybody feels? And then when there's a divorce, people say things like, no, but I mean, that was then, and I really, because you've been on that side.
Yeah, but what he just described, I didn't feel that in my marriage.
You did.
I felt that in a relationship before, but I never felt that in my marriage.
Wow.
And I think that's the biggest thing. I think people get married. Sometimes they get married because of circumstance. Sometimes
Right.
they get married because of situations. Sometimes they get married because, like, again, it's you look at it as a finish line as opposed to a starting line, right? So I think when I got married, not for the wrong reasons, because they were for the right reasons. It was to create a family,
Right.
right? But again, I think that's the thing is we think of is that we all think as though like, okay, I can marry this person and we'll make it work.
Yeah.
And there's sometimes it's just
Or
not.
you think you could fix people? Like I can
Not
fix you.
necessarily, but,
Right.
or that eventually things will just adapt.
Yes.
Like they will come together,
Yes.
right? Oh, it's not this like this, or she's not this, or he's not that right now. But it's okay. I'm patient. We can work on that, right?
Yeah.
But sometimes those things that you are picking out are the reasons why they're actually breaking you up because you're not allowing them. You're not accepting them for them. You're expecting them to be someone else.
So I want to close out with this. Are you open to marriage again?
Absolutely.
And are you open to your wife being on social media, having a page, and engaging
It's
in
not
her life?
not OnlyFans, right?
It could be OnlyFans.
Only if it's
Only if it's your own.
Just,
Only if it's-
just her feet. If it's only feet, we good. I'm all right
Okay.
with that, yeah.
Yeah. And could you purchase an OnlyFans if you're married?
Absolutely not.
So you're not open to that part of marriage?
I'm
like
in
no
her account.
OnlyFans?
No, we looking we looking through her account.
But you do want marriage again.
Absolutely. I would love it. Yeah.
And what
I would
is
love
the
it.
most that you loved in your experience when it was good?
It's like very similar to what he said, is having someone to like there for you.
Yeah.
And it's like, and like knowing that is your person. I feel like that was the most comfortable thing. And I think
I bet that feels good.
That's
It's
the
the
biggest
most
issue that we have
profound.
again is like, that's when it's wonderful being a man in a relationship.
Yeah.
Is when you have someone next to you over that warm body or that rollover.
Or somebody who just rides and dies for you, who supports you, who doesn't judge you, who doesn't weaponize
And
you,
I
but
think
they rocking with you.
that's the hardest part to get over now in
That's a
my
good
40s is
thing.
finding someone that you feel as though, again, because I feel our society right now is that we want grace, but we don't give grace.
But you were on a whole show called Ready to Love.
Yeah, I don't want to talk about that.
Okay, good. That's what-
Yeah, I was on the show, but it's like, even
Were
with
you
that,
ready for love at that time?
absolutely. I think I was, but I think that
And who was your love at that time on the show?
it was a young lady by the name of Carmen. Yeah.
Oh,
At that
wow.
time, yeah.
Okay.
So, but for me, I also think that for me, it was definitely a space in which I saw a lot of things that I didn't expect because it was me coming from a divorce, right?
Yeah.
And thinking that that's their mindset of what they were going to try to do. Saw a couple couples that made it, and it was just different for me. It wasn't what I wanted. I think that I started to see that people weren't there for those types of situations.
Would you go back on a reality show looking
Absolutely
for love?
not.
You would
Absolutely not. Well, one, I think that I'm not a drama person. I don't like drama,
Yeah.
right? I think that
I do know that about him.
that
He
is
doesn't.
one thing that I think that I was not prepared for
Yeah.
was the depiction of how production or certain things will tailor how someone is, right?
Yeah.
And we were characters.
What season was it?
Season 6, I think it was.
Okay, season
Potomac,
6.
yeah.
Potomac. Yep, season 6, Potomac.
Yeah.
To the guys who are married, what is it? I want to close out with the most that you really love and adore about your wife.
Honestly, when I think about her, I say, wow. I say, wow.
Mhm.
And it's not that we don't have hard times, but I'm like, God, you really gave me her. Out of all, like you
Out
gave
of all 8 billion people,
no, seriously, out of all I could have had, the mistakes I could have made, that he gave me the one that helps us get to the finish line.
Absolutely,
in a sense.
absolutely.
And so when I consider, and I'll just say this real quick as we finish, I met my wife working at the juvenile facility, and I asked her, did she have a savior complex? I asked, like, what is it about you? Do you like to have a savior complex? We were hiking. I said, what do you mean? I said, because when I talk to you about the boys, you never complain. And that right there said, man, I got one. I got the one. Because when God put me and her together, no matter what the challenge that we face presently and in the future will be, I will have the woman that are going to have all of our children, but we're going to work in the world to make missiles for God. We're going to make missiles for the world to change the world. And I have the woman that is passionate, that loves, and that's not going to be complaining about what people need to do or don't need to do. She is passionate about me, and she's passionate about our family, and she's passionate about Black people as well, Black boys. And so I'm excited. And
she's a
she makes me
beautiful woman. She's
she is.
really kind. I like her a lot. She's
Last
really
thing
nice.
I'll say is my wife she's drop dead gorgeous. I ain't gonna lie to
She
you.
is.
She's drop dead.
Yeah.
She drop dead gorgeous.
Because when they invited me to the engagement party, I said, "You with her?
Yeah, she
Is she on drugs or medication?"
but watch this.
No, but this is my guy. He's a good guy though. But I love his wife. She's a wonderful
when I
woman.
was on a date with her, first day, I said, "You know you're beautiful, right?" She said, "Who, me?" And it blew me away because she said my mother never told me to identify with my beauty. She told me to identify with my intellect, and I knew I had one. And so my wife is phenomenal. I'm actually excited to leave here.
That
now.
makes my heart
No,
melt.
seriously.
That's what's up, man.
I'm excited to leave here now because sometimes I can take her for granted. I can take her for granted. She works her tail off for us. She wants the best for us. She wants the best for me.
And she loves your son.
And she loves our son.
Yes.
She's willing to. Scriptures teaches that your wife will put you in front of kings.
Bless
Your
you.
wife is a crown on your head. Your wife is your neck. This is what God has intended. So we talk about marriage. The marriage is supposed to exemplify, it's supposed to illuminate the beauty between God and man. That you sinned, you were wrong, you made mistakes, but God pursues you. And God has called each man to pursue his wife. And so I'm challenged now to ensure that I cultivate, lead, and protect my wife to get the best out of her in her life. And so God is doing some great things. And for anybody that's not married, don't do it if you ain't ready. I'm being totally honest. But when you get there, this is one aspect that's going to make you the best man possible. Because when you got to deal specifically with a strong, intelligent, loving, feminine black woman, she has her ups and her downs. But if you tap into that true masculinity, it's going to make you the strongest man you've ever been. There's no job, there's no boss, there's no church, there's no book you can read. When you deal with an intelligent, beautiful, feminine, strong black woman, it's going to make you the strongest you could possibly be.
Now, this is the best
That's it.
time to get the Gucci purse from me. Feeling good. Order the purse.
Order the purse.
Call me,
So-
I'll give you the link. Order the purse.
So
Get the purse.
when y'all ask these questions about what does she bring to the table, the question you should be asking is, who is she serving? Does she
that's
serve God?
good.
Did she submitted
good.
to God? That's a weird
good.
question. What do you bring to the table? My wife was the table. She is. My wife got it all, and I'm grateful. And baby, I'm waiting to see you. So I had to put that in for you, baby. Yeah. All right.
Now, you know me, I've been a bachelor for 20 years, had 7 girlfriends at one time.
Yes, indeed. In those streets.
I was a womanizer, you know. Oh my God. I'm glad to have her. Like, when I met her, it was off the humble. She was a God-fearing woman. Love her dearly. She just took me off my feet, like gave me a redirection. Like, it was like, she was dating, as her word is, she's dating intentional. That was never my vocabulary.
Yeah.
My vocabulary, how I'm gonna put you in rotation, right? So, that wasn't gonna work with her. And so for me, it was like, okay, how am I gonna cut all these girls off to be with this one chick? And so I had to let other women break up with me, right? Kind of like quiet quitting. Yeah. So it took me about a year to do that, so I could be mentally ready to be in a relationship with my wife. And then I just looked at her different. It was like, okay, all right. And she's a God-fearing woman. She is the house. She is the career. She is going to be the mother of my children. And she is another part of God for me. So I just ran with it and cried during my when I got married. Boo-hoo cried. Somebody was
Can
like,
you give us an example what that looked like?
how that look
Ugly
like?
face,
You
ugly
crying
face.
again?
Right.
You always crying all the
Was it
time.
happy face cry? Was it like?
Oh no, I had the ugly. I had the ugly face for real. Sure. Her girlfriend is over here, Brittany. She was in the wedding, and I was crying my butt off, man.
That's love. That's love, and that's God.
That
Listen,
was God first.
That's God first.
That's God first.
Well, look, I want to thank all of you all for participating on this first show. I'm not going to cry, but I will say this, because we don't say this enough as black men. I love each and every one of these brothers up here.
Likewise.
I do. I've had conversations with each one of these brothers, and they've helped me to grow and be a solid and more focused man, and I enjoy their company. So listen, that's perspective. You've heard our perspective. If you think that you have something to say and you want to sit on the couch with me, then just send us a message at info@sirfoxproductions.com. Let me just keep this real. Who in the world is texting me at this? Yeah, somebody's looking for money. I don't want marriage. Don't come over here with it. Listen, I want to hear your
Give
perspective.
her money and send her on the way. There you go.
Take care of yourself, and thank you for watching, people. Thank you.
Thank you.
y'all.
Thanks for having us.